Before we dive in, please remember that this video is for informational purposes only. Always consult with a licensed and insured professional in your specific area for any construction or installation projects. Building codes and regulations can vary significantly by state and municipality. A single gust of wind cost Frank Miller $173,000. It wasn't a hurricane. It wasn't a tornado. It was just a nasty Tuesday thunderstorm in Ohio. And it wasn't the wind itself that destroyed his inventory, ruined his new flooring, and shut his business down for 2 weeks. It was the door. The brand new heavy-duty commercial steel door he just had installed a month earlier. The one he saved about $800 on by having his regular handyman, a great guy named Dave, put it in instead of the overpriced specialists. That night, as the storm rolled in, the wind caught the edge of the improperly balanced door and ripped it clean off its hinges. The frame, which wasn't anchored correctly into the block wall, twisted like a pretzel. For the next 3 hours, rain and debris blasted directly into his warehouse. By the time Frank got the call from his alarm company, the damage was done. But the real nightmare started when he filed the insurance claim. The adjuster took one look at the mangled frame, the consumer-grade hinges Dave had used, and the lack of a proper weather seal, and the claim was denied. The reason? Improper installation and failure to meet commercial code. That $800 savings evaporated into a 6-figure catastrophe. Frank's story isn't a freak accident. It's a quiet epidemic happening in businesses all across America. And it's all built on one simple, dangerous misunderstanding: that a door is just a door. You see, as a business owner, you're conditioned to find efficiencies, to cut costs, to be lean. You look at a quote for a professional commercial door installation and you think, seriously? For a door? I know a guy who can do it for half that. And that single thought, that temptation to treat a critical piece of your infrastructure like a weekend project, is one of the biggest unforced errors a business owner can make. This isn't just about avoiding a disaster like Frank's. This is about understanding that your commercial door is not a passive object. It is an active system. A system that dictates your security, your legal liability, your energy costs, your compliance with federal law, and even how customers perceive your brand. Getting it wrong doesn't just cost you money in repairs. It bleeds your business dry in ways you can't even see until it's too late. So, over the next few minutes, we are going to pull back the curtain. I'm going to show you exactly why that overpriced specialist is actually the biggest bargain you'll ever get. We're going to break down the 5 critical pillars that a professional installation protects, and that a handyman special leaves dangerously exposed. We're talking about ironclad security, bulletproof safety and liability, airtight legal compliance, long-term financial costs, and your all-important brand image. By the end of this video, you will never look at the entrance to your business the same way again. You'll have the knowledge to protect your investment, your employees, and your future. Let's start with the most obvious one: security. Your front door, your back door, your warehouse door, it's not just an entrance. It is the single most critical security point of your entire building. It's the gatekeeper. And an amateur installation creates an illusion of security, which is far more dangerous than no security at all. You think you're protected, but you're leaving a welcome mat out for criminals. Here's the first thing a professional understands that a handyman doesn't: the massive difference between residential and commercial hardware. A pro knows that a commercial entryway demands ANSI Grade 1 hardware. That's the highest rating for durability, strength, and security. We're talking about locks tested to withstand 1,000,000 cycles, deadbolts with hardened steel inserts to prevent drilling, and strike plates anchored with 3-inch screws deep into the studs, not just the flimsy door jamb. Your handyman, Dave? He's probably grabbing a heavy-duty lock set from the local big-box hardware store. That lock might be fine for your back porch, but on a commercial door, it's the equivalent of putting a bicycle lock on a bank vault. It's pure theatrics. A professional installer obsesses over the frame. They know that the strongest lock in the world is useless if the frame it's attached to can be pried open with a crowbar in 10 seconds. A pro ensures the frame is perfectly plumb, level, and square, and securely anchored to the building's structure. This creates a tight, gap-free seal that offers no purchase for prying tools. An amateur installation almost always leaves small, almost imperceptible gaps. To you, it's a tiny draft. To a burglar, it's a gilded invitation. They can wedge a pry bar in there and pop that door open faster than you can find your keys. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a small retail boutique. The owner, trying to save money, had a new back door installed by a general contractor who mostly did residential work. The door looked fine. It locked. but the frame was off by just 1/4 of an inch. One night, a thief came, ignored the fancy alarm sign, slid a simple car jack into that tiny gap at the bottom of the door, and quietly, powerfully spread the frame apart until the lock bolt simply slid free from the strike plate. No noise, no broken glass. They were in and out in under 3 minutes with $10,000 worth of merchandise. When the owner filed the insurance claim, the investigation found the means of entry was a compromised door frame, indicative of a faulty installation. Claim denied. Again, hiring a pro isn't just about the physical barrier. It's about ensuring your financial safety net, your insurance, actually holds up when you need it most. Now let's move on to the second pillar, and honestly, this is the one that should keep you up at night. Safety and liability. Did you know your front door could be your single biggest lawsuit waiting to happen? We live in the most litigious society on earth. A simple trip and fall can escalate into a legal battle that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, sky-high insurance premiums, and a permanently damaged reputation. And your commercial door is a minefield of potential liability. Think about the physics of it. A commercial door is not like the door in your home. It's big. It's heavy, often hundreds of pounds of solid steel or glass. It's used constantly, maybe hundreds or even thousands of times a day. And it's operated by the public, by children, by the elderly, by people with disabilities, by people carrying packages who aren't paying attention. A professional installation isn't just about making it hang straight. It's a precise science of managing immense force and weight safely, over and over again. One of the most critical components is the door closer, that hydraulic arm at the top of the door. A pro meticulously calibrates this device according to the door's weight, the building's internal and external air pressure, and ADA requirements. They adjust the sweep speed so it closes smoothly, the latching speed, so it clicks securely shut without slamming, and the back check to cushion it from being thrown open by the wind. An amateur gets this wrong almost every time. If they set it too strong, the door slams shut with enough force to break a child's arm or knock an elderly person off their feet. Imagine that lawsuit. If they set it too weak, the door might not close completely, creating a massive security breach, or it could swing back uncontrollably and injure someone. A professional understands this delicate balance. They are protecting people, and by extension, they are protecting you from financial ruin. Then there's the threshold, that metal strip on the floor. A pro ensures it's perfectly flush and meets the strict height and bevel requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA. An amateur might leave it a fraction of an inch too high. That tiny lip, which you might not even notice, is a trip hazard. It can catch a cane, a walker, or the toe of a shoe, sending someone crashing to the ground. That's a lawsuit. And we can't forget panic hardware, the push bars on emergency exits. These are life-saving devices. In a fire or an emergency, they have to work. Period. A professional installation ensures the rods, latches, and actuators are perfectly aligned and functioning without any friction or hesitation. An amateur installation might result in a bar that you have to push just right, or a latch that sticks. In a moment of panic, that hesitation can be the difference between a safe evacuation and a tragedy with unimaginable legal and moral consequences. When you hire a professional, you're not just paying for their tools and their time. You are paying for their expertise in risk mitigation. You're paying for peace of mind, transferring the immense liability of that complex mechanical system from your shoulders to theirs. And let's be brutally honest for a second. That liability, it doesn't just come from a catastrophic failure, like a door falling off its hinges. The real danger, the kind that bankrupts small businesses every single day, is far more subtle. It hides in the details. To understand this, let me tell you about a guy named Frank. Frank owned a successful bakery. Great location, amazing croissants, loyal customers. When his front door started sticking, he figured, how hard can it be? He had a maintenance guy, a jack-of-all-trades named Bill, who was great at fixing leaky faucets and patching drywall. So Frank asked Bill to install a new heavy-duty glass and aluminum door. Save a few $100, what's the harm? Bill gets it done in an afternoon. It looks great, swings smoothly. Frank is thrilled. He saved almost $1,000 compared to the quote he got from a commercial door specialist. He felt smart. He felt savvy. But what Frank didn't see, what he couldn't possibly know, were the invisible mistakes. Bill, being a handyman and not a door technician, set the hydraulic door closer based on how it felt. He tightened the spring until it felt about right to him, a healthy 200-pound guy. But the City Code and the Americans with Disabilities Act had a very specific requirement. The door could not require more than 5 pounds of force to open. Frank's new door? It took 12. For weeks, everything seemed fine. But then an elderly woman, a regular who loved their sourdough, tried to push the door open while carrying her purse. The resistance was too much. She lost her balance, stumbled backward, and fell, fracturing her hip. The lawsuit that followed was a nightmare. The woman's lawyer didn't just sue Frank. He brought in an expert who measured the door's opening force. The moment that report came back showing it was more than double the legal limit, Frank's case was over. His "I didn't know" defense was meaningless. His insurance company settled, but his premiums skyrocketed. The $1,000 he saved cost him $50,000 in deductibles and increased insurance costs over the next 3 years. His reputation took a hit. The business survived, but it was a scar he would never forget. And this wasn't a one-in-a-million freak accident. This is the reality of commercial doors. They are not just doors. They are regulated safety systems. A professional installer isn't just making it feel right. They are using calibrated tools, pressure gauges, to ensure that door meets every single line of code in your local jurisdiction. They know the ADA requirements backward and forward. They understand the fire code, which dictates not only how a door opens, but how fast it closes. Think about it. If there's a fire, that door needs to close and latch securely to prevent smoke and flames from spreading. A door that closes too slowly is a fire code violation. A door that closes too fast could injure someone trying to escape. A professional calibrates that closing speed and the latching speed. That final critical push that ensures the latch clicks into the frame, down to the second. They are installing a piece of life safety equipment. Does your handyman know the difference between a backcheck valve and a delayed action valve in a door closer? And how to adjust them for your specific building's air pressure? Because that's another thing. Air pressure. In a modern, tightly sealed commercial building, the HVAC system creates pressure differentials. You have air being pushed into the building and sucked out through returns. This creates a constant push or pull on every single door. A poorly installed door will fight against this. It might be hard to open, or it might slam shut with terrifying force. This isn't just an annoyance. It's a massive energy leak. That tiny gap you can't even see around the edge of an improperly hung door? It's like leaving a window open all year round. Your heating and cooling systems are literally blowing money out the door 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A professional installer does a full assessment. They understand the building's stack effect. They use the right weather stripping, the right thresholds, the right door sweeps, all installed with precision, to create a perfect seal. That seal doesn't just save you hundreds or even thousands a year on your energy bills. It keeps out dust, pests, and noise. It contributes to a more comfortable, professional environment for your customers and your employees. The $1,000 Frank thought he saved on installation? He was probably losing half of that every year in wasted energy, and he never even knew it. Let's go back to Bill, the handyman. He installed the panic bar, that big push bar you see on exit doors. He made sure it worked. You push the bar, the door unlatches. Simple. But did he test it to ensure it complied with UL 305 standards for panic hardware? Did he know that the bar must be mounted at a specific height, between 34 and 48 inches from the floor? Did he use the correct fire-rated fasteners to attach it to the door? Or did he just use whatever screws he had in his truck? Because here's the terrifying part. In an emergency under duress, people don't gently push a panic bar. They slam into it. If Bill used the wrong fasteners, that bar could rip right off the door in a real panic situation. If he mounted it too low or too high, it could be ineffective for a significant portion of the population. The fire marshal doesn't just check to see if the bar works. He checks to see if it's the right model, installed at the right height with the right hardware, and a sticker of certification. One mistake, one non-compliant detail, and he can literally shut your business down on the spot until it's fixed. He can levy massive fines. All because you tried to save a few bucks. Professional knows this. Their entire job, their entire reputation, is built on knowing these codes. They aren't just installers. They are compliance consultants. They are ensuring that your business is not just accessible, but legally defensible. They are protecting you from Frank's lawsuit, from the fire marshal's fines, from the constant, invisible drain on your finances from energy loss. So when you see that quote from a professional that's $1,000 more than the handyman, you're not looking at the cost of hanging a door. You're looking at the price of an insurance policy. An insurance policy against lawsuits, against fines, against failed inspections, against security breaches, and against sky-high energy bills. The professional isn't just bringing a drill and a level. They're bringing a deep knowledge of municipal codes, Federal laws like the ADA, standards from the National Fire Protection Association, and the complex physics of how a 400-pound piece of metal and glass should interact with your specific building. They are performing a complex integration of hardware, frames, and safety systems. They're thinking about things you've never even considered. Is the threshold beveled correctly to allow wheelchair access? Is the locking mechanism rated for the security risk of your neighborhood? Does the frame need to be reinforced to handle the projected number of opening and closing cycles this door will see in a year? This isn't about being handy. It's about being an expert in a highly specialized field where the stakes are incredibly high. The difference between a door that looks good and a door that is truly safe, secure, and compliant is an invisible world of detail and expertise. And in that world, ignorance isn't bliss. It's a liability just waiting to happen. It's Frank's story, waiting for a new main character. And the scariest part is, the door itself is only the beginning of the equation. The frame it sits in is a whole other world of complexity. The frame is the silent partner in your building's security and function. It's the skeleton, and the door is just the skin and muscle. And if the skeleton is broken or just slightly out of alignment, the entire system is compromised from day one. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah owned a small, independent bookstore, a cozy little place with a loyal following. When she took over the lease, the back delivery door was old, dented, and rusted through at the bottom. The frame, however, looked fine. It was solid steel, painted over a dozen times, but it seemed sturdy enough. To save money, Sarah ordered a new, heavy-duty steel door but decided to keep the existing frame. She hired a local handyman, a guy who did great work on her bookshelves, to hang the new door. Seemed like a simple job. Unscrew the old hinges, put the new ones on, hang the new door. What could possibly go wrong? For the first week, nothing. The door was a little stiff, but she figured it just needed to be broken in. Then the little things started. The door never quite latched on the first try. You had to give it a firm push, sometimes a full-on shoulder check, to hear that satisfying click. Employees started leaving it slightly ajar by accident. Then, when the weather turned colder, a noticeable draft started seeping in around the edges. She put some weather stripping on it, but it didn't really help. The real problem started about a month in. The door developed a mind of its own, because the frame wasn't perfectly vertical, a concept professionals call plumb. Gravity was acting on the heavy steel door. It would slowly, silently swing shut on its own. It became a running joke, the ghost door of the bookstore. Until one afternoon, a mother and her young son were leaving through the back after a story time event, and the ghost door swung shut, catching the little boy's fingers. It wasn't a serious injury, just a nasty pinch and a lot of tears, but for Sarah it was a horrifying wake-up call. What Sarah and her handyman didn't understand is that installing a commercial door frame is a game of millimeters, governed by 3 sacred principles: plumb, level, and square. These aren't just suggestions. They are the laws of physics that dictate whether a door functions or fails. First, plumb. Imagine hanging a weight from a string. The line that string creates is perfectly vertical. That is plumb. If the side of the door frame where the hinges are mounted is leaning even slightly in or out, the door will either swing open by itself or swing closed by itself. It will never rest in a neutral position. For a lightweight residential door, it's an annoyance. For a 100-pound commercial steel door, it's a legitimate safety hazard, as that little boy discovered. Next, level. This refers to the top of the frame, the header. It has to be perfectly horizontal. If it's not, the gap between the top of the door and the frame will be uneven, looking like a lopsided grin. This not only looks unprofessional, but it creates pressure points and compromises the seal, letting your expensive heated or cooled air pour right outside. Finally, and most critically, square. This means every corner of the frame must be a perfect 90-degree angle. If the frame is racked, even by a fraction of an inch, becoming more of a parallelogram than a rectangle, the door will never fit properly. It will bind in the corners, scrape against the frame, and the latch will never align perfectly with the strike plate in the jamb. This was the root of all of Sarah's problems. Her handyman, with his 4-foot level and a can-do attitude, simply didn't have the tools or the training to diagnose the old, warped frame. A professional installer would have used a 6-foot level or even a laser to check for plumb, level, and square from the outset. They would have immediately identified that the old frame had settled with the building and was no longer true. They would have known that forcing a new, perfectly manufactured door into a flawed, warped frame is like trying to put a brand new engine into a bent car chassis. The stiffness Sarah felt wasn't the door breaking in. It was the door literally grinding itself against a frame that wouldn't accept it. The latch problem wasn't a faulty lock. It was a misalignment between the latch bolt and the strike plate. That constant, forceful slamming employees had to do to get it to lock was, day by day, damaging the lock mechanism, bending the frame further, and even cracking the drywall around the door. The draft wasn't just a comfort issue. It was a security flaw. The uneven gap was wide enough at one point to easily slip a crowbar through, providing all the leverage a burglar would need to pop the door open in seconds. Sarah's attempt to save a few $100s by reusing the old frame had created a trifecta of failure: a safety hazard, an energy leak, and a massive security vulnerability. The story, however, gets worse. What Sarah didn't know is that her back door was a designated fire exit. Commercial building codes, specifically standards from the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, are incredibly strict about fire door assemblies. And that's what it is, an assembly. The door, the frame, and the hardware are all tested and rated to work together as a single unit to stop fire and smoke for a specific period. 20 minutes, 45 minutes, 3 hours. The moment her handyman installed that new door into the old, non-compliant frame, he voided the fire rating for the entire opening. The code dictates that the clearance, the gap between the door and the frame, must be precise, typically no more than 1/8 of an inch on the sides and top. Sarah's door had a gap of over a 1/4 inch in some places. In a fire, that gap becomes a chimney, funneling deadly smoke and superheated gases directly into the escape route. If a fire marshal had done a surprise inspection, she would have faced immediate, hefty fines and a mandate to fix it immediately, at any cost. If a fire had actually broken out, and someone was hurt because that door failed to contain the smoke, the legal and financial liability would have been catastrophic. It could have ended her business and her life savings. So let's tally the true cost of Sarah saving money. She paid the handyman for the initial, faulty installation. She paid higher energy bills every month because of the constant draft. She paid for a new lock mechanism when the old one finally broke from being slammed shut 1,000 times. Then, after the incident with the child and her own panicked research into commercial door codes, she had to pay a professional company to come out. They had to do twice the work: carefully remove the new door, demolish and pull out the old warped steel frame from the concrete wall. A loud, messy and labor-intensive job, and then finally install a brand new appropriate frame correctly, plumb level and square. Only then could they properly hang and balance the very same door she had bought months earlier. The total cost was more than triple what it would have been to just do the job right from the very beginning. Her simple shortcut turned into the most expensive and stressful ordeal of her first year in business. She learned the hard way that the frame isn't just the thing the door hangs on. It's the foundation. And if your foundation is flawed, everything you build on top of it is destined to crumble. Now you might be thinking, okay, I get it. The door has to be solid, the frame has to be perfect. As long as those two things are right, I'm good to go. But that's like saying as long as a car has a strong engine and a straight chassis, it's ready to drive. You're forgetting the most intricate and critical system of all, the controls. The hardware. The hinges that carry the load, the lock that secures your livelihood, and the closer that ensures it all operates safely and reliably, every single time. And that hardware is where an amateur's good intentions can lead to a professional-grade disaster. Let's start with the hinges. To an amateur, a hinge is a hinge. You screw it to the door, you screw it to the frame, and you're done. A professional knows that the right hinge is the silent, load-bearing foundation of the entire door system. Think about it. A solid core commercial wood door can weigh over 100 pounds. A hollow metal steel door can easily top 200 pounds. Now imagine that weight hanging on 3 or 4 small pieces of metal, being opened and closed hundreds, maybe thousands of times a day in a high-traffic business. A DIY installer might grab some standard hinges from a big box store. A professional will select heavy-duty, ball-bearing hinges. Those tiny ball bearings between the knuckles of the hinge are critical. They reduce friction, allowing that 200-pound door to swing open with the push of a finger. Without them, the sheer rotational force and friction will grind the metal of the hinge down over time. It won't happen overnight. It's a slow creeping failure. First, you'll see a fine black or gray dust around the hinge knuckles. That's not dirt. That's the metal of the hinge literally disintegrating. Then the door starts to sag. The top corner on the lock side begins to scrape against the frame. It gets harder to close, harder to lock. Your employees start having to lift the door handle just to get the latch to catch. Your customers notice. It makes your establishment feel cheap, poorly maintained. Eventually, the screws will pull out, the hinge will fail completely, and that 200-pound door will come crashing down. That's not just a maintenance issue. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. A professional not only selects the right weight-rated, ball-bearing hinge, but they also prepare the door and frame with absolute precision, mortising the pockets for the hinges to the exact depth so the door sits perfectly flush within the frame, with an even gap all the way around. It's a level of detail that good intentions can't replicate. Now let's talk about the lock. The lock isn't just about keeping people out, it's about letting the right people in and doing so reliably for years. Commercial locks are graded by the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI. Grade 3 is residential quality. Grade 2 is for light commercial use. Grade 1 is the heavy-duty standard, tested to withstand at least 800,000 cycles, a million cycles for some, and significant force. Your business needs a Grade 1 lock. But buying a Grade 1 lock is only the first step. Installing it is a completely different universe from installing a doorknob on your bedroom. Let's say you have a metal door and a metal frame. The prep work is unforgiving. The holes have to be drilled in the exact location with the right backset perfectly level. If the hole for the latch mechanism is off by even 1/8 of an inch, the lock will bind. It will be stiff to turn, or worse, the latch won't fully extend into the strike plate on the frame. This is a massive security failure. A partially engaged latch can often be bypassed with a simple credit card. All that money you spent on a high-security lock is wasted because the installer didn't have the right tools, the right template, or the right experience. And what about the strike plate? The metal plate on the frame that the latch goes into. A handyman might just screw it on. A professional knows that on a metal frame, that strike plate needs to be properly secured, sometimes even reinforced to prevent a kick-in attack. On a wood frame, they'll use extra long screws that bite deep into the stud behind the frame, not just into the soft pine of the door jamb. They understand that a lock is only as strong as the frame it's attached to. Think of it like this. A DIY installation might leave you with a door that looks locked. A professional installation gives you a door that is secure. It's the difference between the appearance of security and the reality of it. When you're protecting your inventory, your data, and your employees, that's a difference that matters. Finally, we arrive at the most misunderstood and incorrectly installed piece of hardware on any commercial door: the closer. That hydraulic arm at the top of the door is a sophisticated piece of engineering, and it's almost always required by code for fire safety and for ADA accessibility. Its job is to control the door, ensuring it closes completely and at a safe speed every single time. An amateur sees a box with an arm and a bunch of screws. They'll mount it on the door, often backwards or upside down, and then they'll start twisting the adjustment valves randomly until the door sort of closes. The result is a disaster. Either the door slams shut with a terrifying bang, a genuine danger to anyone, especially a child, who might get their fingers caught, or they'll over-adjust it the other way. The door will swing almost closed, and then stop, leaving a 1-inch gap. This is a security nightmare. Your door is unlocked all night because the latch never engaged. It's also an energy efficiency catastrophe. You're literally paying to heat or cool the entire neighborhood because your front door is permanently ajar. A professional understands the physics and the legal requirements of a door closer. They will mount it correctly based on the door, the frame, and the direction of the swing. Then they will meticulously adjust the independent hydraulic valves. They'll set the sweep speed, which is the speed the door travels for most of its journey. Then they'll set the latch speed, which is the final few inches of travel, ensuring it closes firmly enough to latch but not slam. And critically, they will adjust the backcheck, a feature that provides resistance if the door is flung open, preventing it from slamming into a wall or a pedestrian. Most importantly, they will use a pressure gauge to ensure the opening force complies with the Americans with Disabilities Act. If it takes too much force to push your door open, your business is not accessible, and you are vulnerable to massive fines and lawsuits. That one detail, the ADA-compliant opening force, is something an amateur installer will never even know to check for. It's the invisible liability they bolt to the top of your door. So you see, it's not just one thing. It's a system. The hinges carry the load, the lock secures the opening, and the closer controls the motion. When an amateur gets one part wrong, it creates a cascade of failures. Improperly installed hinges cause the door to sag, which causes the lock to misalign and bind. A slamming closer puts incredible, repeated shock loading on the hinges and the lock, wearing them out prematurely. It's a chain reaction of failure, where one small mistake in hardware creates a cascade of problems. But the hardware is only half the battle. The real test of a professional installation lies in the one thing most people never even think about, the frame itself. The frame is the skeletal system of your entire entryway. It's the silent, unpraised foundation that dictates the performance of every other component. You can have a $3,000 high-security lock and a door slab made of reinforced unobtainium, but if it's hanging in a frame that was installed by someone who thought close enough was a unit of measurement, you've essentially bought a very expensive, very heavy paperweight. The frame isn't just the metal border that holds the door. It is an integrated structural component of your wall. When it fails, it doesn't just fail on its own. It takes the door, the hardware, and your peace of mind down with it. The entire science of a professional frame installation boils down to 3 words that are chanted like a mantra by every seasoned installer: plumb, level, and square. This isn't just industry jargon. It's the geometric holy trinity that separates a door that lasts for decades from one that becomes a maintenance nightmare in 6 months. Let's start with plumb. Plumb refers to being perfectly, absolutely vertical. Imagine a string with a weight on the end. That's a plumb line. It points directly to the center of the earth, and so should the vertical sides of your door frame, known as the jambs. If the hinge side jamb is even 1/8 of an inch out of plumb, leaning into or out of the opening, you've just introduced gravity as an active enemy of your door. If it leans away from the opening, the door will constantly try to swing shut on its own. If it leans into the opening, it will perpetually drift open. This isn't just an annoyance for people carrying boxes. It's a constant, unnatural stress on the hinges. They are now fighting the weight of the door, and the force of gravity pulling it in a direction it was never meant to go. The hinges will wear out faster, the screws will loosen, and the top hinge, bearing the brunt of this sideways load, will begin to pull away from the frame itself. Now consider the latch side jamb. If it's out of plumb, your latch bolt will never align perfectly with the strike plate. It might catch, but it won't fully engage. That satisfying, secure click is replaced by a mushy thud. This means your door isn't truly locked. A firm push, a credit card, or a simple shim could be enough to bypass it. The installer might try to fix this by grinding out the strike plate opening, creating a giant sloppy hole. This not only looks terrible, but it completely compromises the security the lock was designed to provide. A professional ensures it's plumb from the start, so the hardware works exactly as the manufacturer intended. Next is level. This is the horizontal equivalent of plumb. The top part of the frame, the header, must be perfectly level. If it's not, the gap between the top of the door and the frame will be a telltale triangle. It will be tight on one side and wide on the other. This isn't just a cosmetic flaw that screams, amateur hour. That uneven gap is a breach. It's a breach of your building's thermal envelope, letting heated or cooled air pour out, driving up your energy bills. In a fire-rated assembly, that gap is a fatal flaw. Fire and smoke will pour through that opening, rendering the expensive fire-rated door completely useless and creating a massive liability for you. A level header ensures a consistent, tight seal, which is critical for security, energy efficiency, and life safety. Finally, the one that ties it all together, square. This means the corners where the jambs meet the header are perfect 90-degree angles. A frame can be plumb and level, but if it's not square, it creates a twisted parallelogram shape called a racked opening. When you try to hang a perfectly rectangular door in a racked opening, it will bind. The top corner on the latch side might hit the frame while the bottom has a huge gap, or vice versa. The door will scrape along the floor or the header as it moves. To fix this, an amateur might take a grinder to the door itself, permanently damaging it and voiding its warranty and fire rating. A professional understands that the problem isn't the door, it's the frame. They spend the time to shim and adjust the frame until it is perfectly square before the door is ever hung, because they know that without a square foundation, you're just creating problems that can't be solved later. But achieving plumb, level, and square is only possible if the frame is anchored correctly into the wall. This is where the knowledge of a professional installer becomes invaluable, because the wall itself dictates the entire strategy. A frame in a drywall and steel stud wall is a completely different animal from one in a concrete block wall. In a commercial steel stud wall, you can't just use any screw. An installer who uses simple drywall or wood screws is setting a time bomb. Those screws have the wrong thread and tensile strength. They'll either strip out the thin gauge steel immediately, or they'll pull out the first time someone leans on the door too hard. A professional uses specialized self-tapping screws designed to bite into metal, or they anchor the frame directly to wood blocking that was installed inside the wall cavity during construction for this exact purpose. They know that the anchor isn't just holding the frame in place. It's transferring the entire force of the door's operation into the building structure. Now let's talk about a masonry opening, concrete block or brick. This is where you see the most catastrophic DIY failures. An amateur might try to use plastic anchors and screws, the kind you use to hang a picture in your living room. Against the force of a 150-pound steel door being opened and closed 100 times a day, those anchors will pulverize the surrounding concrete and pull out within weeks. A professional will use heavy-duty masonry anchors. These could be lead shield expansion anchors, sleeve anchors, or even epoxy-set threaded rods. They will drill precise holes, clean them of all dust and debris, and set the anchors to a specific torque. A properly anchored frame in a masonry wall becomes one with the wall. A criminal can come at that door with a pry bar, and the steel of the frame will bend and deform long before the anchors ever let go of the concrete. That is true security. The final, insidious enemy of a door frame is the twist. A frame can be perfectly plumb, level and square, but if it's twisted along its depth, it will never work. This happens when an installer over-tightens the anchors on one side of the frame, pulling it slightly out of plane with the other side. You can't see this with the naked eye, but when you hang the door, it will never sit flush against the weather stripping on the frame stop. There will be a gap at the top, the bottom, or both. This creates a constant draft and allows sound to bleed through. No amount of hinge adjustment can fix a twisted frame. The only solution is to remove the door, loosen all the anchors, and meticulously reshim the entire frame until it is perfectly flat and in plane. This is a subtle, maddening problem that plagues buildings with poorly installed doors, and it's a mistake a seasoned professional knows how to avoid from the very beginning. So the frame is not a passive object. It is an active, load-bearing system. It is the interface between your building and your security. Getting it wrong introduces forces of gravity, torque, and torsion that will relentlessly attack your hardware, your door, and your building's integrity until something breaks. The precision required is not optional. It is the absolute prerequisite for a door that functions safely and securely for its entire lifespan. So we've built the perfect foundation. The frame is plumb, level, square, and anchored like it's part of the bedrock. But what do we hang on this perfect foundation? The door slab itself is far more than just a slab of steel. It's a complex system of cores, skins, and edges, and choosing the wrong one can turn your fortress into a hollow box. And that's where the real cost of a cheap door begins to show. Let's talk about that cost. Because when we say a door is more than just a slab of steel, we're talking about its heart, its skeleton, the core. This is the single most overlooked component by business owners. And it's the first thing a professional installer will ask you about. Because the core dictates everything: security, insulation, soundproofing, and even fire safety. Get this wrong, and you've just installed a beautifully painted $1,000 weak link. First up, the most basic entry-level option, the honeycomb core. Imagine taking a sheet of cardboard, the kind with the wavy paper sandwiched in the middle, and expanding that structure. That's essentially what a honeycomb core is. It's paper or cardboard, treated for strength and fire resistance, arranged in a hexagonal pattern, and laminated between the steel skins of the door. Why does it exist? It's cheap and it's lightweight. That's it. That's the entire list of benefits. For an interior closet door in an office, maybe it's fine. But for an exterior door, it's a liability disguised as a bargain. The security it offers is minimal. A determined thief with a pry bar, or even a heavy-duty drill, can compromise this door with alarming speed. It offers almost zero insulation, meaning your heating and cooling bills are going to skyrocket as your HVAC system fights a losing battle against the outside temperature bleeding right through your door. And sound? Forget about it. You'll hear every conversation, every passing car, as if the door wasn't even there. Using a honeycomb core on a perimeter door is like building a bank vault and then making one of the walls out of drywall. It looks the part, but it fails the moment it's tested. So we take a step up. We move into the world of insulated cores, starting with polystyrene. This is essentially a big block of rigid foam, the same kind of stuff used to insulate coolers or homes, cut to fit perfectly inside the door cavity. Suddenly, you have a thermal break. That steel skin on the outside can be baking in the summer sun or freezing in the winter chill, but that insulated core is fighting to keep the temperature from transferring to the inside skin. What does this mean for you, the business owner? Real, tangible dollar and cents savings. Your air conditioner or your furnace doesn't have to work as hard. Over the 10 or 20-year lifespan of that door, the energy savings alone can often pay for the upgrade from a honeycomb core. It also provides a significant boost in sound dampening, and adds a level of rigidity and security that honeycomb just can't match. It's denser, making it harder to puncture or deform. A slightly more advanced version of this is the polyurethane core. The manufacturer injects a liquid foam into the door cavity, which then expands and hardens, filling every single nook and cranny. This process creates an even stronger, more rigid bond between the steel skins and the core, resulting in a door that's incredibly durable and offers some of the best insulation values on the market. For most commercial applications, retail stores, offices, warehouses, a polyurethane or polystyrene core is the sweet spot. It's the perfect balance of cost, security, and energy efficiency. But what if you're not most businesses? What if you store high-value inventory? What if your business is in a high-crime area? Or you simply need to know that your perimeter is as secure as humanly possible? Then you need to enter the realm of the steel-stiffened core. This is the brute squad of commercial doors. Forget foam or paper. The inside of this door is a fortress of steel. It's constructed with heavy-gauge steel ribs, like a steel skeleton, running vertically every 6 or 8 inches. These ribs are then welded to the steel face sheets, creating a single unbelievably strong integrated unit. The cavities between these steel stiffeners are then typically filled with fiberglass or rock wool insulation, so you still get thermal and acoustic benefits. But the primary purpose here is raw, uncompromising strength. Trying to pry open a steel-stiffened door is like trying to tear a car chassis in half with your bare hands. Trying to drill through it is a nightmare of hitting steel rib after steel rib. These are the doors used in high-security government facilities, pharmacies, jewelry stores, and any business where forcible entry is a primary concern. The door feels different. It sounds different when it closes, a solid, definitive thump that echoes with security. It's heavier, it's more expensive, but it's the closest you can get to making your doorway an impenetrable wall. Now we have to talk about the most important core of all, because this one isn't just about protecting property, it's about protecting lives. We're talking about fire-rated cores. A fire door is one of the most critical life safety features in your entire building, and its effectiveness is almost entirely dependent on its core. These cores are typically made from mineral-based materials, like gypsum, which is the same stuff used in fire-rated drywall. These materials are designed to do one thing in a fire: withstand immense heat for a specific period without failing. This is where you see ratings like 20-minute, 45-minute, 90-minute, or even 3-hour. That number isn't arbitrary. It's a rating earned through brutal trial-by-fire testing by organizations like Underwriters Laboratories, or UL. They take the door, install it in a test wall, and blast one side with a furnace that reaches over 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit. The clock starts. They're measuring how long it takes for the fire to burn through, for the door to warp and let flames escape, or for the unexposed side to get so hot that it would ignite materials on the other side. A 90-minute rated door has to survive those hellish conditions for an hour and a half. Think about what that means. A fire breaks out in a storage room. The 90-minute fire door you had professionally installed closes. For the next hour and a half, that door is a silent guardian. It's holding back a raging inferno, keeping the fire contained to that one room. It's keeping hallways and escape routes free of smoke and flames. It's giving people time to get out of the building. It's giving the fire department time to arrive and do their job. That door, because of its specialized mineral core, is the line between a minor incident and a catastrophic tragedy. Choosing the right fire rating isn't a suggestion. It's dictated by building codes based on the door's location and the type of wall it's in. A door leading from a stairwell to a corridor has a different requirement than a door separating two different buildings. A professional understands these codes inside and out. They know that a 3-hour rating is needed for a 4-hour firewall, and a 90-minute rating is needed for a 2-hour wall. Picking the wrong core, or having an amateur install it improperly, doesn't just void your warranty, it voids your fire protection. Puts every single person in that building at risk. And in the aftermath of a fire, you can be certain that investigators and insurance companies will look at that door. If it wasn't the correct, code-compliant product, the legal and financial fallout can be devastating. So you have honeycomb, polystyrene, steel-stiffened, and fire-rated mineral cores. It seems straightforward, right? Pick the core that matches your needs for security, insulation, and safety. But this is where the web gets truly tangled, and where the difference between a DIY attempt and a professional installation becomes a chasm. Because the most expensive, most secure, most perfectly rated door core in the world is rendered completely and utterly useless by one thing: the wrong frame. You can buy a $3,000 steel-stiffened, fire-rated door slab, a masterpiece of security engineering. But if you hang it in a standard lightweight drywall frame, or even worse, a wooden frame that wasn't designed for it, you've achieved nothing. You've bolted a vault door to a cardboard box. All of that strength, all of that engineering, all of that fire resistance, it's all concentrated in the slab itself, while the anchor points holding it to the building are the equivalent of paper clips. A thief won't even bother attacking your impenetrable door. Why would they? They'll just attack the flimsy frame around it. And this is the single biggest, most catastrophic misunderstanding business owners have about security. They spend thousands on a high-security steel door, a state-of-the-art lock, and then allow an amateur to install it. What they've actually done is build a bank vault door and hang it in a cardboard wall. The thief isn't a fool. He's not going to spend an hour trying to drill your Medico lock, when he can just put a crowbar next to the frame and pop the entire door and frame assembly out of the wall in under 60 seconds. We've seen it happen. The entire unit, ripped clean from the drywall, lying on the floor like a discarded picture frame, while the thieves walk out with your inventory. So, what does a professional do differently? What's the secret sauce that turns a door from a simple panel into a genuine security barrier? It's not one thing. It's a dozen small critical details that an amateur doesn't even know exist. Let's start with the frame itself. A professional commercial installer isn't just grabbing a standard frame. They're looking at the wall construction. Is it wood studs? Metal studs? Is it concrete block? Each one requires a completely different type of frame and a completely different anchoring strategy. For a truly secure entrance, they'll recommend a heavy gauge, fully welded steel frame. We're talking 16 gauge or even 14 gauge steel. To a layman, that's just a number. To a professional, it's the difference between a frame that will buckle under the force of a car jack and one that will laugh at it. The corners are welded, ground smooth, and primed. It's a single monolithic piece of steel. Compare that to the knockdown frames you get at a big box store. They come in 3 pieces that you have to screw together on site. Every one of those seams, every one of those screw holes is a weak point. It's a pre-made fracture line just waiting for a pry bar to exploit it. But even the world's strongest frame is just a decorative steel rectangle if it isn't anchored to the building's soul. The absolute non-negotiable mission of a professional installer is to connect that frame directly to the structural skeleton of your building. They aren't just putting a few screws into the drywall and calling it a day. That's malpractice. They are finding the studs. They are drilling through the frame and deep into the solid wood or steel studs behind the wall. They're using specialized fasteners like heavy-duty sleeve anchors or concrete bolts that are designed to withstand thousands of pounds of shear force. For a concrete or block wall, they're drilling deep into the masonry and using expansion anchors that become part of the wall itself. The goal is simple. The door frame must be more a part of the wall than the wall is. It has to be so integrated that a thief would have to tear down the entire wall to get the door out. Let me tell you a quick story about 2 businesses, both in the same strip mall, both selling high-end electronics. Let's call them Tech World and Gadget Galaxy. Both decided to upgrade their backroom security doors. The owner of Tech World, trying to save a few $100, hired a local handyman. The handyman installed a heavy steel door in a knockdown frame. He used a few longwood screws, driving them through the frame and into the drywall, maybe catching the edge of a stud here and there. He filled the gaps with foam and it looked fine. The owner was happy. He saved money. Next door, the owner of Gadget Galaxy hired a professional commercial door company. The pros came in, took precise measurements, and ordered a 14-gauge continuously welded steel frame. When it arrived, they carefully set it, making sure it was perfectly plumb, level, and square. They used a dozen high-strength steel stud anchors, drilling directly into the core of the building's steel framing on both sides and across the top. The installation took a full day and cost about 40% more than Tech World's job. 3 months later, a burglary crew hit the strip mall. They went to Tech World first. Their security camera footage, which the police reviewed later, was shocking. 2 men, 1 crowbar. They wedged the bar between the frame and the wall. In less than 45 seconds of prying and pulling, the entire door and frame unit ripped right out of the wall. The screws, barely clinging to drywall and splintered wood, just gave way. The thieves were in and out in under 5 minutes. Then they moved to Gadget Galaxy. The camera footage shows them trying the same technique. They jam the crowbar in. They pull. Nothing happens. The steel frame doesn't even flex. They put a longer pipe over the crowbar for more leverage. One of the men is literally hanging off it. The drywall around the frame starts to crack and crumble, but the frame itself doesn't budge. It's locked into the building's skeleton. After 2 frustrating minutes, they give up and flee. The owner of Gadget Galaxy had to patch some drywall. The owner of Tech World had to file an insurance claim for over $80,000 in stolen goods. The difference wasn't the door. It was the installation. It was the knowledge of how to make that door a part of the building's very bones. But this isn't just about a 1 in a million break-in. This is about the daily grinding reality of a poorly installed door. A professional installation is about precision. We're talking about tolerances of less than 1/8 of an inch. When a door is installed perfectly plumb and level, it swings effortlessly. It closes securely. It latches with a satisfying solid click. When an amateur hangs a heavy commercial door, it's almost never perfect. The weight of the door itself will immediately start to exploit any imperfection. The door will sag. It will start to scrape the floor, leaving a gouge in your new tile. It will bind in the frame, forcing your employees and customers to heave it open with their shoulder. Or worse, it won't close all the way. It will hang open 1/4 of an inch, leaving a gap. And what does that gap mean? It means your expensive heated or cooled air is pouring out into the parking lot 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That great deal you got on installation is now costing you hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars a year in wasted energy bills. A professional installation ensures a perfect seal. They use proper weather stripping, install door sweeps and thresholds correctly, creating an airtight barrier that saves you real money every single day. And then there's the part that can truly sink your business: legal compliance. This is where a bad installation goes from being an annoyance to a full-blown liability nightmare. 2 acronyms should send a chill down any business owner's spine: ADA and NFPA. The Americans with Disabilities Act has incredibly strict requirements for commercial doorways. The width of the opening, the height of the threshold, the amount of force required to open the door. It's all specified by law. A professional installer knows these codes inside and out. They use a force gauge to test the door closer. They ensure the threshold is beveled correctly. An amateur? They just hang the door. If it's too hard to open for someone in a wheelchair, or if the threshold is too high and becomes a trip hazard, you are now facing a potential lawsuit that could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Even more terrifying is the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA. If your business requires a fire-rated door, which is common for exits, stairwells, and utility rooms, the law is absolute. The entire assembly, the door, the frame, the hinges, the latch, must be installed exactly according to the manufacturer's specifications to maintain its fire rating. If an amateur installer uses the wrong screws, leaves too large a gap between the door and the frame, or uses a non-rated sealant, that door's fire rating is now void. In the event of a fire, that door will fail. It won't hold back the smoke and flames like it was designed to. And if the fire marshal inspects your property and finds an improperly installed fire door, they can fine you or even shut your business down on the spot until it's fixed. The liability, both financial and moral, is staggering. So you see, the idea that you're just hanging a door is a dangerous myth. You are installing a complex, integrated system. It's a security system, an energy conservation system, and a legal compliance system all rolled into one. And every single one of those functions depends entirely on the quality and precision of the installation. The slab is the muscle, but the frame and the way it's anchored is the skeleton. Without a strong skeleton, the muscle is just dead weight. Now, we've established that a solid door and a fortress-like frame installation are the foundation. But what about the crucial components that actually connect the two and keep them shut? I'm talking about the hardware. The hinges that bear the entire weight, the lock that does the actual securing, and the closer that ensures it's always protecting you. Because even with the best door and frame in the world, if the hardware is the weak link, your entire investment is pointless. It's the classic story of the Achilles heel. You can build the most impenetrable fortress, but if you leave one tiny unguarded gate, the entire thing is worthless. In the world of commercial doors, that unguarded gate is almost always the hardware. It's not the flashy part. It's not the big steel slab or the heavy-duty frame. It's the small mechanical components that do all the real work day in and day out. And when they fail, everything fails. Let's start with the most overlooked component, the hinges. You probably never think about them. They're just there. But for a criminal, a cheap hinge is a golden invitation. On a standard residential door, a thief can often just pop the hinge pins out with a screwdriver and a hammer, and lift the entire door right off its frame, regardless of how many deadbolts you have. It's a quiet, fast, and devastatingly effective way to bypass your security. Professional installer knows this. For any outswinging commercial door, one that swings toward the outside, they will use what's called a non-removable pin, or NRP hinge. These hinges have a special stud or a security tab built into them. When the door is closed, that stud locks into the opposite hinge leaf, making it physically impossible to separate the two halves, even if the pin is completely removed. It's a tiny, inexpensive feature that most handymen or DIY installers don't even know exists. But it's the difference between a door and an easily removable wall panel. Furthermore, a pro understands weight dynamics. A solid core wood or hollow metal commercial door can weigh hundreds of pounds. Slapping on 3 standard hinges from a big box store is a recipe for disaster. The screws will strip out, the metal will bend, and the door will start to sag within months, if not weeks. It'll scrape the floor, it won't latch properly, and eventually, the top hinge will fail catastrophically. A professional uses heavy-duty, ball-bearing hinges correctly rated for the door's specific weight and frequency of use, ensuring smooth, reliable operation for years, not months. Now let's talk about the main event, the lock. This is where the gap between amateur and professional becomes a chasm. When you go to a hardware store, you see locks. When a professional looks at a commercial entryway, they see a complex system of security grades and functions. The most important distinction you need to know is the ANSI/BCMA grade. That stands for the American National Standards Institute and the Builders Hardware Manufacturers Association. They created a simple grading system: Grade 1, Grade 2, and Grade 3. Grade 3 is the absolute minimum, what you typically find on an interior bedroom door. It's designed to withstand a few hard shoulder checks and is tested for about 200,000 cycles. Grade 2 is a step up, what you might find on a residential front door. It's tougher, tested for 400,000 cycles. But for any exterior commercial application, the only acceptable standard is Grade 1. A Grade 1 lock is a beast. It's tested to withstand 1 million cycles of use. It has hardened steel components to resist drilling. It can take brutal impacts from sledgehammers and pry bars. It's designed not just for security, but for the relentless abuse of a high-traffic public entrance. Installing a Grade 2 lock on your main entrance to save a few $100s is like putting bicycle tires on a freight truck. It might roll for a little while, but the moment it's put under real stress, it will fail spectacularly. A professional installer won't just recommend a Grade 1 lock. They'll install the correct type of Grade 1 lock. They'll know the difference between a mortise lock, which is housed inside a deep pocket within the door for maximum strength, and a cylindrical lock, which is installed through a simple drilled hole. They'll understand that for a pair of double doors, you need a specialized set of vertical rods or flush bolts to secure the inactive door, and they'll know how to install them so they actually align and engage every single time. A handyman might just throw a simple deadbolt on there, leaving a massive gap and a critical point of failure. And this brings us to a piece of hardware that is as much about saving lives as it is about security: the panic bar or exit device. We've all used them, the bar you push to exit a theater or a department store. The reason they exist is terrifyingly simple. In an emergency like a fire, a crowd of panicked people will surge towards the exit. A traditional doorknob or lever is impossible to operate under that kind of pressure. People get crushed. The exit becomes a fatal bottleneck. A panic bar allows the door to be opened with simple body pressure, no matter the chaos. But here's the frightening part. A panic bar that is installed incorrectly is more dangerous than no panic bar at all. If the rods are cut too short or too long, if the latching mechanism is misaligned with the strike plate on the frame by even a fraction of an inch, it can jam under pressure. The very device designed to save you can become the thing that traps you. A professional installer isn't just following instructions. They are ensuring compliance with life safety codes like NFPA 101. They understand the clearances, the mounting heights, and the precise adjustments required to guarantee that when people are running for their lives, that door will open. Finally, let's look at the unsung guardian of your entrance: the door closer. That hydraulic arm at the top of the door. To most people, it's just a convenience, something that pulls the door shut so you don't have to. But from a security and safety standpoint, it is absolutely critical. A door that doesn't close is just a hole in the wall. A door that doesn't latch is an unlocked door. The closer's single most important job is to ensure your expensive, Grade 1 lock actually engages and secures the opening every single time someone passes through. Installing and adjusting a commercial door closer is a science. A professional has to account for the door's weight, its width, exterior wind pressure, and even interior air pressure, known as the stack effect. They will select a closer with the right spring size and adjust the hydraulic valves with precision. They set the sweep speed, how fast the door closes initially, and the latch speed, that last few inches where it needs a little extra push to overcome the latch. Get it wrong, and the consequences range from annoying to catastrophic. Too much power, and the door slams shut with enough force to injure a child or an elderly customer, opening you up to a massive lawsuit. Too little power and a gust of wind or the building's HVAC system can hold the door open just enough for the latch to miss the strike plate, leaving your business completely unsecured overnight. A pro calibrates this system perfectly. They ensure the door closes controllably, latches securely, and meets the opening force requirements mandated by the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. So you see, it's not just about buying good hardware. It's about creating a cohesive, synergistic system. The hinges must be strong enough to support the door so it doesn't sag and misalign the lock. The lock must be robust enough to withstand attack. And the closer must be powerful and precise enough to ensure that lock can actually do its job time and time again, for a million cycles. Each component relies on the others. A professional installer is the conductor of this mechanical orchestra, making sure every piece plays its part in perfect harmony. They aren't just screwing parts to a door. They are building an integrated security and life safety system. And yet, even if you manage to get this entire mechanical symphony right, even if you select the perfect hardware and install it with flawless precision, there's another invisible layer of complexity that can bring your business to its knees. A web of rules and regulations so dense that one wrong move, one incorrect sign, one door that's half an inch too narrow, could cost you more than a break-in ever would. This isn't an exaggeration. This is the reality of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. And it's not a building code. It's a federal civil rights law. Let that sink in. When you get a door wrong, you're not just failing an inspection. You are potentially violating someone's civil rights. The consequences are not a small fine and a slap on the wrist. The consequences are federal lawsuits, crippling legal fees, and a public relations nightmare that can shutter your business for good. Let me tell you about a business owner. Let's call him Mike. Mike owned a fantastic boutique coffee shop. He'd poured his life savings into it. He sourced the best beans, hired the best baristas, and designed a beautiful rustic interior. He chose a heavy, solid oak door for the entrance. It felt substantial, secure. It had a beautiful, ornate brass knob that you had to twist firmly. It looked incredible. And for the first 6 months, business was booming. Then he got a letter. It was from a law firm. It informed him he was being sued for non-compliance with the ADA. Mike was floored. He thought, my business is accessible. I have a ramp, I have a wide hallway. He had no idea what they were talking about. The lawsuit, however, was brutally specific. It wasn't about his ramp. It was about his beautiful solid oak door. Let's break down the minefield Mike walked into. The same minefield every business owner is standing in right now, whether they know it or not. First, there's the clear width. The ADA mandates that the opening of a doorway must have a clear width of at least 32 inches. Now, Mike's door slab was 36 inches wide. He thought he was fine. But clear width isn't the width of the door itself. It's the measurement from the face of the door when it's open 90 degrees to the stop on the other side of the frame. When you account for the thickness of the door and the hinges, Mike's 36-inch door only provided 31.5 inches of clear space. Half an inch. He was being sued over half an inch. To you and me, half an inch is nothing. But for someone using a standard wheelchair, that half inch is the difference between entering your business and being turned away by a wall of wood they can't fit through. It's the difference between being a customer and being an outsider. Next, the lawsuit cited his threshold. The beautiful beveled wood threshold he'd installed was 3/4 of an inch high to provide a tight seal against the elements. The ADA standard for a threshold is a maximum height of half an inch. Again, 1/4 of an inch. Seems trivial, doesn't it? But for someone with a walker, or someone in a manual wheelchair trying to get over it without a running start, that 1/4 inch is a jolt. It's a barrier. It's a potential tipping point that could cause a fall and an injury right at your entrance. Then came the opening force. Remember that heavy, substantial oak door Mike was so proud of? To open it, you needed to exert about 15 pounds of force. Felt secure. The lawsuit pointed out that for an exterior door, the ADA doesn't specify a maximum force, but leaves it to what is reasonable. And many local codes set that limit at 8.5 to 10 pounds. For interior doors, it's a strict 5 pounds of force. 5 pounds. That's the amount of pressure it takes to push a single gallon of milk across a countertop. Mike's heavy door, meant to feel secure, was an impenetrable barrier for someone with limited upper body strength, an elderly customer, or someone with arthritis. And that beautiful brass knob, the one you had to grip and twist, that was another violation. The ADA requires hardware that is operable with one hand and does not require tight grasping, pinching, or twisting of the wrist. Think lever handles, push-type mechanisms, or U-shaped pulls. That classic, elegant doorknob was discriminatory. It's impossible to use if you're carrying something, or if you have a disability that affects your hand strength or dexterity. But the lawsuit didn't stop there. It got even more granular, moving from the door itself to the space around it. The ADA has incredibly specific requirements for maneuvering clearance. This is the clear floor space needed on both the pull and push sides of the door, so that a person in a wheelchair can approach, open the door, and pass through. On the pull side of Mike's door, where you had to pull it open towards you, the ADA requires a clear space of 60 inches deep and 18 inches to the side of the handle. This gives a wheelchair user room to pull the door open without having to roll backward into traffic. Mike had placed a large, decorative planter in that space. It looked great, but it completely eliminated the required clearance. He had inadvertently created a trap. This is the insidious nature of ADA compliance. It is a web of interconnected details. One wrong choice cascades into multiple violations. The wrong door with the wrong hardware in the wrong frame with the wrong threshold with the wrong closer in the wrong location. It all adds up to a legal disaster. Now what happened to Mike? The lawsuit wasn't a warning. It wasn't a please fix this notice. It was a demand for damages and legal fees. Under the ADA, the plaintiff who sues you can have their attorney's fees paid by you, the business owner, if they win. And these cases are notoriously difficult for businesses to win because the violations are usually measurable and clear. It's not about your intent. It doesn't matter that Mike was a good person who never intended to exclude anyone. The only thing that matters is whether the door met the standard. His did not. Mike had to hire his own lawyer at hundreds of dollars an hour. He was advised to settle because going to court would be even more expensive. The settlement involved paying the plaintiff's legal team tens of thousands of dollars. But that was just the beginning. The lawsuit opened the floodgates. Now that his business was flagged as non-compliant, he had to pay for a certified access specialist to audit his entire property. They found other issues: the height of the transaction counter, the slope of the ramp, the mirror height in the bathroom. The cost to fix everything, including ripping out and replacing his brand new front door and frame, was astronomical. The legal fees, the settlement, the retrofitting costs, it all added up to over $50,000. It was a blow his new business couldn't survive. 6 months later, Mike's coffee shop, his dream, was closed for good. All because of half an inch, a quarter of an inch, and a doorknob he thought looked nice. This is not a scare tactic. This story, or versions of it, plays out thousands of times every year across the United States. There are entire law firms that specialize in nothing but ADA lawsuits. Their investigators, called testers, travel around looking for violations as simple as a heavy door, and then file suit. So, how do you avoid becoming Mike? You recognize that a commercial door is not a piece of furniture. It is a complex, regulated piece of access machinery. And its installation is not a handyman job. It is a job for a professional who lives and breathes this stuff. A professional commercial door installer doesn't just hang a slab of wood or metal. They are your first line of defense against a legal nightmare. They understand the nuances of the ADAAG, the Americans with Disabilities Act accessibility guidelines. They know your state and local codes, which are often even stricter than the federal law. They don't guess. They bring out a digital force gauge to measure the pressure needed to open the door, ensuring it's within the 5-pound limit. They measure the clear width, not the door width. They use a level to check the slope of the threshold down to the fraction of a degree. They know the exact maneuvering clearances required for a front approach, a hinge side approach, or a latch side approach. They know which closers have the proper sweep speed and delayed action features, allowing people time to pass through safely. They are your compliance partners. They protect you from your own best intentions, from choosing that beautiful door that will ultimately bankrupt you. They provide the right hardware, the right frame, the right threshold, and the right signage from day one. An installation by a certified professional is your insurance policy. It's the documentation and the proof that you did your due diligence, that you met the letter of the law, and that your business is what you always intended it to be. Truly open to everyone. The cost of a lawsuit is not just financial. It's the stress, the public shame, the feeling of being targeted. It's the damage to your brand's reputation when you're labeled as a business that doesn't care. All of that can be avoided by making one correct decision at the very beginning. So we've covered the brutal physical reality of a security breach. We've just navigated the legal minefield of compliance. The cost of getting either of these wrong is catastrophic. But what about the other side of the coin? What is the profound long-term value, the return on investment, of getting it right from the very start? It's more than just avoiding disaster. It's about building a foundation for success that will pay dividends for decades. Let's talk about those dividends. The first and most fundamental is the dividend of unshakable peace of mind. A professionally installed commercial door isn't just a barrier. It's a statement. It's a silent guardian. When every component is perfectly torqued, every seam is flawlessly sealed, and the lock set engages with a solid, definitive thunk, you have created an environment of genuine security. This isn't just about preventing theft, though that's a massive part of it. It's about the psychological impact on everyone who uses that space. Your employees feel safer. They can focus on their work without a nagging worry in the back of their mind. Your customers feel it too. They walk into a business that feels solid, secure, and permanent. This feeling of safety is a foundational element of trust, and trust is the bedrock of any successful business. A poorly installed door with its rattling frame or sticky lock constantly broadcasts an aura of vulnerability. It's a low-level hum of anxiety that erodes confidence over time. Professional installation silences that hum. It replaces anxiety with assurance. That assurance is priceless. The second dividend is the power of perception. Your front door is the first physical point of contact a customer has with your brand. Before they speak to a single employee, before they see a single product, they interact with your door. What does that interaction say? A heavy, perfectly balanced door that swings open smoothly and closes with a quiet, confident click. That's your brand's handshake. It communicates quality, attention to detail, and stability. It subconsciously tells the customer, we get things right. We don't cut corners. You can trust what's inside. Now imagine the opposite. A door that's hard to pull open, that scrapes against the floor, or that slams shut with a jarring crash. That's a weak, fumbling handshake. It communicates carelessness. It suggests that if you can't even get the entrance right, what other details are you missing? This isn't an exaggeration. It's human psychology. We make snap judgments based on sensory input. A professionally installed door is your silent salesman, working 24/7 to make the perfect first impression, reinforcing your brand promise before a single word is ever spoken. Third, let's talk about the dividend of pure, unadulterated operational efficiency. We often think of doors as static objects, but in a commercial setting, they are dynamic pieces of machinery that dictate the flow of your entire business. Think of a busy restaurant kitchen. A double swing door that works flawlessly allows servers to move in and out seamlessly, hands full, without breaking stride. A faulty one creates a constant bottleneck, a little point of friction that adds seconds to every trip, which adds up to minutes every hour, and hours of lost productivity every month. Think of a retail stockroom or a warehouse loading bay. An overhead door that opens quickly, reliably, and safely every single time is critical to your supply chain. When it fails, your entire operation can grind to a halt. Trucks are left waiting, employees are standing around, and money is being burned. A professional installation isn't just about hanging a door. It's about optimizing the flow of your business. It's about removing friction. It's about understanding the specific demands of your operation, the traffic flow, the type of use, the environmental factors, and installing a system that enhances it rather than hinders it. This is where expertise pays for itself, not in years but in weeks. Now for the fourth and perhaps most financially compelling dividend, the drastically reduced total cost of ownership. The initial cost of an installation is just one tiny piece of the puzzle. The true cost of a door reveals itself over its lifespan. A door installed by a non-specialist might save you a few $100s on day one, but it's a Trojan horse of future expenses. Because the alignment is off by a millimeter, the hinges are under constant, unnatural stress. They wear out faster. Because the threshold isn't perfectly sealed, you're bleeding heated or cooled air every second of every day, driving up your utility bills. Because the closer is improperly calibrated, the door is slamming, causing microfractures in the frame and glass. So you start a cycle of endless repairs. A service call here for the hinges, another one for the lock, a new weather strip there, then a full replacement of the closer. Each visit is a cost, and each visit means downtime. The professionally installed door, however, is a different story. It's installed to operate within its tightest engineering tolerances. The load is perfectly distributed. The movement is fluid. The seal is airtight. It's designed for maximum efficiency and minimum wear. It might require routine preventative maintenance, but it avoids the cascade of costly reactive repairs. Over 5, 10, or 20 years, the professionally installed door isn't the more expensive option. It is, by an enormous margin, the cheaper one. You don't just buy a door. You invest in a solution. The question is whether you want to pay once for a permanent solution, or pay over and over again for a persistent problem. The fifth dividend is about looking forward. It's the dividend of future-proofing. A true professional doesn't just see a hole in a wall that needs to be filled. They see a component of a larger building system. They understand how your business might evolve. They might recommend a frame that can easily accommodate an upgrade to a keycard access system down the line. They'll ensure the electrical rough-in is there for a future automatic operator. They install a system with a view to adaptability. This strategic foresight saves you a fortune in the long run. When you decide to upgrade your security or comply with new accessibility regulations, you're not starting from scratch, tearing out a poorly planned system. You're simply building upon a solid, professionally laid foundation. It's the difference between a simple upgrade and a complete, costly overhaul. This is what true expertise provides. It solves not only the problem you have today, but also the problems you don't even know you're going to have tomorrow. Ultimately, this comes down to recognizing the value of craftsmanship. The person who installs your commercial door is not a handyman. They are a specialist, a technician with a deep understanding of physics, material stress, and the intricate dance of building codes and safety regulations. They have spent years honing a specific skill set. They can feel when a door is balanced. They can hear the subtle sound of a misaligned pivot. They take a deep personal pride in a perfect fit, a seamless seal, and a flawless operation. This isn't just a job for them. It's a craft. By investing in a professional, you are not just buying their time. You are buying their experience, their precision, their foresight, and their commitment to getting it right. You are leveraging their accumulated years of solving complex problems so that you never have to experience them yourself. So, when you look at the entrance to your business, what do you see? Do you see a simple door? Or do you see the gatekeeper of your security, the handshake of your brand, the regulator of your operational flow, and a long-term financial asset? The choice to hire a professional for your commercial door installation is not an expense to be minimized. It is one of the most fundamental investments you can make in the safety, efficiency, and perception of your entire enterprise. It is a decision to build on a foundation of quality, to choose long-term value over short-term savings, and to invest in the kind of peace of mind that allows you to focus on what you do best: running your business. Because in the end, a great business isn't just about what happens inside the walls. It begins with the simple, profound, and powerful act of getting the entrance right.